You think you understand reality. You don't. At the edge of physics, your instincts shatter, your logic bleeds out, and the universe stops making sense. Welcome to the cliff where every answer crumbles into a better question, and where your comfortable grip on how things work is a flat-out lie. You've spent your entire life inside a bubble of medium-sized things moving at medium speeds. That bubble feels like the whole world. It is not. It is a thin, fragile sliver of what actually exists. Beyond that sliver, the rules change, break, reverse, and laugh at your common sense. You have been trained since childhood to expect causes before effects, objects in single locations, time that flows one way. Those expectations are survival mechanisms, nothing more. They are not fundamental truths. They are local habits of a universe that, at its core, does not share them. And the moment you push past the atom or rewind to the first second of existence, those habits become liabilities. The edge of physics is not a distant abstraction for lab coats in windowless buildings. It is the true texture of reality, and you have been shielding yourself from it your whole life. That shielding is about to crack. You live by cause and effect. Every event has a trigger. Every object has a location. That's the machinery of your daily life. But push past the atom or rewind to the first second of existence, and that machinery explodes. The maps you trusted, Newton, Einstein, even your own eyes, don't just fail, they incinerate. You have been navigating the world with a map that was never designed for the territory. It was designed for comfort, for prediction, for hunting, gathering, and not walking off cliffs. But the territory itself is far stranger than your ancestors ever needed to know. Quantum mechanics, general relativity, these are not optional add-ons to your worldview. They are the actual operating system of reality. And that operating system has no problem with a particle being in two places at once. It has no problem with time slowing down or speeding up depending on how fast you move. It has no problem with empty space being a seething foam of virtual particles that blink in and out of existence faster than you can blink. Your problem is not that physics is broken. Your problem is that your intuition is a primitive tool built for a narrow range of experiences. You have been trying to use a hammer to understand a quantum field. That hammer is now on fire. Let it burn. The edge of physics is not a warning to stay back. It is an invitation to grow up and admit that most of what you think you know about reality is a useful fiction, not the truth. Here's the brutality. At the quantum level, nothing is real until you look. Particles pop in and out of empty space. They exist in two places at once. They communicate faster than light, as if space itself is a bad joke. You've been taught to worship certainty. Certainty is a ghost. The universe runs on probability, and probability doesn't owe you a stable desk, a predictable day, or a single solid object. Take the double slit experiment. You fire a single electron at a barrier with two slits. Logic says it goes through one slit or the other. But if you don't measure which path it takes, the electron behaves like a wave, going through both slits simultaneously and interfering with itself. The moment you try to catch it in the act, the wave collapses, and the electron picks a single slit, as if embarrassed to be caught. Observation changes outcome. Your gaze alters reality. That is not philosophy. That is a brute experimental fact, reproduced millions of times. And yet you walk around acting like the world exists independently of your attention. It does not. At the deepest level, the act of measurement, of asking a question of nature, forces nature to pick an answer. Before you ask, there is no answer. Only a cloud of possibilities. You have been living your life as if the script is already written. It is not. Every moment you observe is a moment you help write the script. That should terrify you and liberate you in equal measure. Terrify because your precious stability is an illusion. Liberate because if reality is not fixed until observed, then your attention is not passive. It is creative. Stop wasting it. You think time is a river, forward, relentless, measurable. Wrong. At the edge of a black hole, time freezes. At the speed of light, time doesn't exist at all. Your past, present, and future might be happening simultaneously. A frozen block of events you're just stumbling through. The ticking clock on your wall is a lie your brain tells itself because the truth would make you catatonic. Einstein's theory of relativity demolished the universal clock. There is no master timekeeper. Time is local, stretchable, squeezable. If you stand next to a black hole, your seconds stretch into hours for someone far away. If you travel near light speed, you age slower than everyone you left behind. Twin paradox is not a paradox, it is a fact. One twin returns from a high-speed journey to find their sibling decades older. That really happens. Clocks on GPS satellites run faster because they are farther from Earth's gravity, and engineers have to correct for it every microsecond, or your phone's map would drift by kilometers each day. You already depend on relativistic time correction to find a coffee shop. You just never noticed. And here is the deeper cut. The block universe interpretation of relativity suggests that past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. Your birth, your first kiss, this moment, your last breath, all equally real, eternally present in a four-dimensional block. Your feeling of time flowing is a neurological artifact, like a film projector creating motion from still frames. The frames are all there. The flow is you. So when you say, "I don't have time," what you really mean is, I am choosing not to rearrange my relationship with a dimension that does not care about my excuses. That stings because it should. Physicists speak in equations, elegant, precise, until they reach the singularity, the heart of a black hole or the birth of the Big Bang. There, the math divides by zero. Infinity spills out. Space and time don't just warp, they stop meaning anything. The most powerful tool humanity has ever built, mathematics, throws up its hands and walks away. That's not a puzzle, that's a wall. A singularity is not a thing. It is a blinking red sign that says, your theory just killed itself. Inside a black hole, general relativity predicts infinite density, a point of no size containing a sun's worth of mass. That is nonsense. Physics hates infinity. Infinity means you have pushed your equations beyond their domain of validity, like using a recipe for cookies to build a skyscraper. The same thing happens at the Big Bang. Rewind the expansion of the universe and you eventually hit a singularity, a moment when all of space and time is crushed into a point of infinite temperature and density. Again, the math screams and dies. This is where quantum mechanics and general relativity meet, shake hands, and immediately try to kill each other. Quantum mechanics hates smooth, continuous space. General relativity hates probabilistic, jumpy particles. They are incompatible frameworks, and the singularities are where that incompatibility becomes a screaming wound. You have been taught that science has all the answers. It does not. At the frontier, science has better questions and worse answers. The fact that the math breaks is not a failure of physics. It is a feature of a universe that does not owe you a tidy equation. The only people who think physics is finished are those who have never looked at a singularity. Look at one now, see the limit, and stop pretending you live in a fully understood cosmos. You ignore this edge every morning. You assume the laws of physics will hold. You assume your actions have predictable consequences. You assume reality is finished, stable, trustworthy. That's not confidence, that's willful blindness. The universe is not a machine, it's a leaning tower of anomalies, and you're standing at the bottom, refusing to look up. Every time you wake up, brush your teeth, drive to work, and assume the floor will hold, you are making a gamble. An excellent gamble, statistically speaking, but a gamble nonetheless. The laws of physics as we know them are descriptions of how the universe has behaved so far. They are not prescriptions. They are not guarantees. For all you know, the fine structure constant, the number that determines how atoms stick together, could change tomorrow. It probably won't. But probably is not certainly. And you have been treating probably as certainly your entire life. That is intellectual laziness dressed up as practicality. You mock people who worry about black holes swallowing Earth, but you also refuse to admit that your confidence in a predictable tomorrow is based on nothing more than habit. Habit is not proof. You have never experienced tomorrow. You have only experienced yesterdays that resembled each other. Extrapolating that pattern indefinitely is not logic, it is faith. Secular, unexamined, arrogant faith. The edge of physics is not out there in a particle accelerator. It is in your refusal to admit that the ground beneath your feet is not as solid as you pretend. The moment you accept that, you don't become paralyzed, you become honest. And honesty is the only foundation worth building on. Stop worshiping answers. Start worshiping questions. The shift is small but brutal. Trade, I need to be sure, for I need to be honest about the uncertainty. Certainty is comfort. Comfort is the enemy of depth. The next time you feel absolutely sure about anything, your career, your beliefs, your future, remind yourself, the universe doesn't do absolute. You're not wrong for wanting it, you're weak for demanding it. This is not nihilism. This is the opposite of nihilism. Nihilism says nothing matters because nothing is certain. Maturity says things matter more because nothing is certain. The physicist Richard Feynman once said that you should never fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. You fool yourself every time you round a probability to a certainty. Every time you say, I know, when you mean I have a strong hunch based on incomplete data. The mindset shift is simple. Add one word to your internal vocabulary. Replace is with appears to be. Replace always with so far consistently. Replace impossible with extremely unlikely given current models. This is not linguistic pedantry, this is intellectual hygiene. A surgeon washes their hands to avoid infection. You wash your language to avoid certainty infection. Certainty is a disease that stops you from learning. The moment you decide you know something for sure, you stop looking for counter-evidence. You stop being curious. You stop being a scientist in your own life. And you need to be a scientist in your own life because your life is happening at the edge of a universe that does not send memos about its exceptions. Be uncertain. Be rigorous about your uncertainty. And watch how much clearer everything becomes when you stop pretending to be sure. It won't be the equations, it'll be you. Because if space isn't a stage, if time isn't a clock, if particles don't exist until observed, then your sense of control, your identity, your precious narrative of a linear life, all of it is local, provisional. A temporary agreement between your neurons and a reality that doesn't give a damn about your sanity. That's the edge. And most people turn back. You have built your identity around continuity. You are the same person who went to bed last night and woke up this morning. That feels true. But at the quantum level, every particle in your body has been replaced multiple times. At the relativistic level, your experience of time is unique to your path through the universe. There is no universal now that synchronizes your timeline with anyone else's. The person you were 5 minutes ago is gone, not metaphorically, physically. The configuration of atoms, the electrical states in your brain, they have changed. You are a pattern, not a thing, a flame, not a rock. And the edge of physics reveals that patterns are fragile. They depend on observers, on frames of reference, on probabilities that could have gone another way. Your deepest fear, that you are not in control, that you are not a fixed self, that your life is not a story with a clear arc, that fear is not a bug in reality, it is a feature. You are not supposed to feel solid, you are supposed to feel provisional because you are provisional. The universe is a process, not a collection of objects. You are part of that process. When you stop fighting that and start leaning into it, the edge stops being terrifying and starts being home. But most people never make that turn. They cling to the illusion of solidity until reality pries their fingers off. Do not be most people. There is no bridge yet, no unified theory, no satisfying, and then it all makes sense. String theory, loop quantum gravity, elegant guesses, beautiful failures. The edge of physics is not a problem to be solved, it's a condition to be endured. You want closure? Go read a novel. Science at this altitude doesn't close, it splits open. Every generation has believed they were close to the final theory. Every generation has been wrong. In the late 1800s, physicists thought the work was nearly done. Just a few loose ends like the Michelson-Morley experiment and the ultraviolet catastrophe. Those loose ends became relativity and quantum mechanics. Today we have dark matter, dark energy, the hierarchy problem, the cosmological constant problem, the measurement problem, and the singularity problem. Loose ends are not bugs, they are the engine. The moment physics ties the last knot is the moment physics dies. You have been raised on stories with endings. Movies close, books end, your brain craves resolution. The universe does not. It is not a story. It is an ongoing, unfinished, possibly unfinishable process. String theory has been worked on for 50 years by thousands of brilliant people. It might be wrong. It might be untestable. Loop quantum gravity might be right, but make no testable predictions for a century. There is no guarantee that the human brain, evolved to throw spears and recognize faces, is capable of understanding the fundamental nature of reality. That is a real possibility. The edge of physics might be not a temporary barrier, but a permanent cognitive horizon. And you need to make peace with that, not resignation, peace. The adult response to a mystery is not to solve it immediately. It is to stand in front of it and say, I don't know, and I'm willing to stay in that discomfort. That is what real intellectual courage looks like, not answers, endurance. So here's your challenge, not to become a physicist, but to stop lying to yourself. For 1 week, every time you feel certain about something, stop. Say out loud, that's a guess. Every time you assume tomorrow will behave like yesterday, pause. Say, probably, but not guaranteed. Don't preach this, live the crack. The universe is broken in the most beautiful way, and if you can't handle that, stay on the safe side of the cliff. The edge doesn't need you, but you might need the edge. Stop begging for answers, start asking better questions. Right now, you want a final slap? Here it is. You will die. Not metaphorically, actually. And on that day, every piece of certainty you clung to will dissolve like smoke. The only things that will have mattered are the moments you lived fully inside the question, the times you looked at the unknown and didn't flinch. So stop hiding in the comfortable middle. Stop pretending the world is a spreadsheet. The edge is not a place you visit, it is a place you live. And you have been living there your whole life without admitting it. Admit it now. Stand at the cliff, look into the broken math, the shattered time, the uncertain particles, and instead of demanding it make sense, say thank you. Thank you for being stranger than my fear. Thank you for being bigger than my need for answers. Then take one step forward, not toward closure, but toward honesty. That step is your call to action. No one is coming to save you from the uncertainty. Save yourself. Start now.